Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Let me start off by offering a big thank you to all my new subscribers. I am glad people are finding my channel and are actually finding my videos useful. So big shout out to the 248 of you who subscribed and decided to stick around. So with that said, I've had a few requests for me to explain my approach to drums and drum programming. So today I want to take the time in this video to do just that. Big disclaimer, I am not an actual drummer. I've spent very little time behind an actual kit. I spend most of my time with these guys here, learning and playing the guitar, and that's where I put most of my efforts. However, if you're a songwriter or producer and you're just looking for a place to start, even if you're more experienced and you just want a new perspective, go ahead and watch the video and I'll share what I know and how I go about things. So when it comes to programming drums, there's actually three primary methods that I use, and I will often combine all three of these when I produce my tracks. So the first method is drum loops. These are found in sample libraries such as Splice, and they're full and complete drum loops that you can just download and click and drag right into your DAW. The second is drum samples. These are also found in sample libraries, but unlike the full and complete loops, they're going to be just individual drum sounds, or what you would call one-shots. And you take these one-shots, you download them, and you can program them into a MIDI drum kit, and then you can perform the loops on your own and create your own loops from scratch. So the third method is drum VSTs. These are virtual instruments. They're full and complete software plugins that allow you to emulate the sound of a real drum kit. They allow you to get great drum sounds and great performances if you're using a MIDI controller. So let's jump into a project, and I will show you how I use all three of these methods in an actual track. All right, so here's a track I'm currently working on. To start, I laid down this rhythm guitar piece here. Then I added these guitar chords. All right, so when it's time to add drums, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a section of the song and I'm just going to loop it. You can hit Control-L to do that. So next I'm going to insert MIDI track. I always like to color it red. That's my own code to know that it's drums. It's easy to see. Label it drums. Then I'm going to take Addictive Drums 2, place it on my MIDI track. So once Addictive Drums is up, I'll go to View and I'll just browse the different presets that they have. Addictive Drums is not the only VST you can use. So Kontakt has a bunch of VST drums. They have all the Abbey Road series, the Butch Vig drums. These are all different kits you can use. Studio Drummer is a really great sounding kit. But for now, we're going to use Addictive Drums. That's just the one I primarily use. And I'm just going to browse for a kit. I know I like the Funk kit, and I do like this preset down here. Once I have that selected, all that's going to be playable through a MIDI controller. All right, so now when you're ready to record drums, all you got to do is make sure your metronome's on, loop a little section, and just hit record. All right, so once you have something recorded, you can kind of look and see what you just did. You can see that the notes aren't exactly on the grid, and that's okay. You can quantize those if you want, which means you can snap them onto the grid lines. But for me, I like to keep my performance as real and human as possible. I think sometimes you lose that human effect and you lose that swing if you are quantizing everything that you do. So for me, this is fine. Sometimes if something's really off like this, I might go ahead and nudge that a little bit. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with this. So next I'll quickly show you how to do that using drum samples rather than using VSTs. And with Ableton, we use what's called drum rack. I'm going to take what we just did and I'm just going to mute it. I'm going to collapse them. And then I'm going to insert MIDI track. Make it red so I know. And we're just going to use drum rack. So I like to use Splice to find my samples. So first thing, I'll find a hi-hat. I already had one pulled up here. I'm just gonna drag that in. Then we're gonna find a kick. We have this one. And same thing, we'll find a snare. We'll use this one. So once you have your samples loaded in your drum rack, you just click and drag them here. You're gonna see that your MIDI controller, at least mine if you're using the Ableton Push, lights up. You can also use this on your keyboard. These are the actual keyboard notes for your piano. But my pad lights up, so I can play these just by touching the button. A couple cool things about drum rack. Each individual sample has their individual controls. So you can shorten the sample, shorten it this way. You can also fade in if you want less of attack, fade out. One thing I like to do with hats, this is a couple quick tips. You can use filters, and you can filter out your high end. But I like to use what this is the LFO. Just make sure you click off retrigger. And now you can change these parameters based off of this sine wave. So if you want to filter, you can turn that up, and you can see how it's filtering based off of the sine wave. You can do the same thing with pitch. Now you can hear the hat is changing pitch. Same thing with pan and volume. That's a cool way to get quick spacey hats. I use that all the time. You can also use these things like random pan. This will just pan your hats randomly. And you got your volume, and you can transpose the notes here. So yeah, quick way to use Drum Rack. If you're ready to record, just go ahead and record it like we just did. All right, so I went ahead and recorded some hi-hats. Hear how they sound. Pretty basic stuff. You can see how they're not completely on the grid. And the last thing I did is just add a little drum fill at the end just to make it a little more interesting. So let's hear how that sounds. All right, so the next thing I did was record some tambourine just to emphasize the offbeats. Something I didn't mention at the beginning is a lot of the times I will add my own percussive sounds just using a microphone and what I have around me. It could be a tambourine, could be brushes, it could be drumsticks, it could be tapping, it could be just whatever I have around my studio. I'll try to find some percussive element and add it to my track. I think it's a great way to add something unique and bring something fresh to your groove. Here's the tambourine. So the last thing I took was just some brushes, and I just brushed my desk with them, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so the last thing I added was just some bass guitar and some lead guitar. So let's play it and see how it sounds. All right, so I hope I did a decent enough job explaining those concepts. I know I barely just touched the surface on a lot of that stuff, but if you want me to dive in deeper with anything, let me know in the comments. I'm gonna keep trying to make these videos. Hopefully you find them useful. Again, I appreciate you hanging out with me. Until next time, peace out.